Okay, I've tested out the lighting and I've tested out the sound about 5 times now. I've tested out where I'm supposed to sit so that I appear somewhere in the middle of this frame. And after 10 times, we're ready to start. Welcome to episode 2 of the Run Your Life podcast. First of all, I'm blown away by everyone's comments. Thank you for watching, or thank you for listening. If you were listening while you were walking or running or watching on the treadmill, I'm honored that you would take the time out of your life to listen and watch. We're just going to jump right into it. And I just want to mention that this podcast, these episodes are sponsored by Mount to Coast. And I am so grateful that they believe in me and have decided to give me a chance to produce these first 4 episodes. They're going to be the shoe that I am wearing on the Javelina 100 race that I am running on October 31st. So somewhere in the middle of the podcast, I will drop a code for them so that you can get 10% off. Let me preface this next section by saying that when I started out 8 years ago and I was looking for other people to follow in their footsteps, so to speak, there were no other pioneers in this very little niche category that I feel like I've kind of created now, which is using running, and you say the word using in brackets, using running to overcome possibly some trauma and to help with self-esteem. And I say the word using, and I am not a neuroplasticity expert. I can only speak of what has happened to me. I am not a trauma expert. I can only speak of my own trauma and how running has helped me manage triggers. So you are listening to this and watching this, and you can see what has happened to me. But the one thing I want to say as a disclaimer is that in that first year, I had no idea this was going to happen to me, that I was going to, let's loosely say, change. So I want to really preface that. And maybe I'm saying that because don't start out thinking you're going to change on this journey. You probably will. The likelihood of you changing is high. But that's not how this journey should start. This journey should start, or whatever journey you decide to go on, should start with a very small step, and that is of completing today. That is your only homework that I will ever give you. Is if you want it, take it, is do the work today. Do something today. Finish something today. Put on your sneakers today and see how far they take you. Because then this conversation that I've just prefaced, you will understand what I say next with it. The transformation happens in the journey. The journey is not understood before you go through the journey. You don't get a book. You have to feel through all the feelings. You have to eat shit pie. You have to fall in the mud. And so when I started this, almost 8 years ago, I had no idea that 8 years later I'd be sitting here and talking about this. So my biggest piece of advice for you is complete today. Then when tomorrow rolls around, complete today again. And by stacking those todays, you will get to a bigger tomorrow. Well, I guess, I'll start by saying first that discomfort is a privilege not allowed to many. Discomfort is a privilege not allowed to many. And the ability to put on a podcast and then to have to do the homework after the podcast is a privilege. The ability to run and feel discomfort is an absolute privilege. If you are in the ultra running world or the running world, or you kind of follow this world and you are, in the very beginning throes of climbing out of the cave and wanting to see more of this, then you may have heard of runs that are called backyard ultras. And one such run, which was put on about 3 months ago by BPN, which is Bar Performance Nutrition, Nick Barr, he had a backyard ultra where there was a gentleman who had no function of his legs. And then it started pouring rain. So now this 4-mile loop, which they call a yard down there, y'all folks, this 4-mile loop, they call it a yard, and however many yards somebody can do, that's kind of like you win, the last man standing. And when it poured on this course, which it did, he had to use his arms and to push himself as far as he could. So the discomfort with anything you take on is a privilege. And I say that with very much conviction. And I've felt it on my own skin. I've felt it in my own body, suffering on the trails of, the last 2 years doing the 100-kilometer distances at the Javelina 100. You're out there in the heat and you are asking yourself, why am I doing this? And my point, the reason I brought that up is because many of you in the comments mentioned, am I too old? Am I too out of shape? Do I not have the right body, et cetera, et cetera. And you are what you think. You are what you think. That is the simplest, most basic explanation I can tell you of pursuing any goal, never mind any athletic goal. So if your goal is to pursue a new identity and to want to call yourself a runner, you are going to experience so much discomfort. The discomfort will lead to so much self-doubt. But if you prioritize in your head that the discomfort is leading to growth, and as long as I'm continuing to feel discomfort, I am growing. If you prioritize that thought process over the thought process of, I don't belong here, this isn't for me, this will never be comfortable, this sucks, it's supposed to be easier as I do more of it. No, it's not. It's not. I tell you this, that it's not. I am almost 8 years into my 5-kilometer daily streak. And okay, physically, it's a little bit easier. But if you ask my friend Jean, who I run Tuesdays and Thursday mornings with, how many times I've told her that my legs feel like lead. What gets easier is that you are able to handle the discomfort easier. You are able to process the discomfort easier. And that is where you win. That is, you've climbed to the top of the totem pole. That is the medal you get, is that you have now managed to manage your own discomfort. I will do a how to start video that will be on the regular YouTube channel, not in the podcast. 10 to 15 minute video that will go over all of the basics. I will go over what I wear, the sneakers that I chose, which are Mount to Coast, my warm-up routine, which can be sized down or sized up. So depending on how much time you have. And then I will go over what I use as intervals, which you don't have to. You can break that in half. And how fast or how slow you should go. I will make a separate video on that because I feel like that deserves its own topic. I can't thank Mount to Coast enough for sponsoring this podcast, the first Run Your Life podcast, episode 2. They have been gracious enough to share a code with me, and that is for 10% off of any of their sneakers on their website. Sandra10 is the code for a sweet pair of Mount to Coast. To answer the basic question of where you should start. Where you should start is by spending time on your feet. Your feet are what carry you. They either carry you walking or carry you running. If your feet are uncomfortable, You will know it. So when I started out on that 5 kilometer daily streak, and the year before that, that I prepped my body, I was probably doing 15 to 25 kilometers every week of being on my feet. If you break that down, that is 3 mile, 3, 6, 9, 5, 10, 15. Yeah, 3 3-mile walks or runs. That was in 2018. That is how I started. But how I started before that was in my basement on my treadmill for the preceding 6 months before that first run I ever took, which was March 18th, 2018, when I finally went outside for the first time ever in 25 years, and I thought I was going to die. I did 3.5 kilometers out, 3.5 kilometers back for a total of 7 kilometers. And I thought, what in the heck am I doing? I ran too fast. I thought I needed to run fast. I had no sense of my breath. I thought I was hyperventilating. It brought me back to high school. And I want to tell you that it took me 2 years, maybe even closer to 3, to figure out that my sweet spot is a 13-minute mile. That is my absolute sweet spot. And that is where my heart rate stays around 130. And I can maintain that pace for a very long time. So in the past few years, I have decided that I want to do 2-minute running and 1-minute walking when I'm outside. It conserves my energy and it lets me run longer, faster. Run for a longer period of time, not faster, sorry. So it lets me run longer. And that 2-minute run, 1-minute walk is just enough to let the nightmare of running be understood, that 2 minutes is going to go by fast and that 1-minute walk is coming up just around the corner. And that is the mental game that I play in my head to get me over the hill. So it's just playing mind games with myself to be able to trick myself and to be able to know that I got this, I can do this a little bit longer. Prior to starting this 5-kilometer daily streak, one of the reasons that I can truly attest to saying that my life has changed is because looking back at the person I was 8 years ago, that person was constantly looking for evidence that they didn't belong. And the evidence was in copying other people. And when I started the streak, when I started running, when I started completing a daily activity, that evidence in those people that I previously knew was nowhere to be found. Will you lose friendships if you start to change your life? Absolutely. Even though they say you are the sum of the 4 people or 6 people or 8 people that you hang out with, it is generally true. So I have lost friends. I've made room for new ones. If you constantly look for evidence that you do not belong, for example, in the running world, you will find it. You are going to dig until you find a small little glimmer of that evidence to suit your narrative. There is no way in hell right now that you can find any evidence that you do not belong in the running world or the consistency world or the ultra world, because there is every single shape and size of runner out there now. Every shape and size. So there is no longer any evidence that you do not belong at a Boston Marathon. Okay, maybe not that one, because that one you got to get in with a time or you have to do fundraising. Okay, forget Boston, but Toronto Marathon, Chicago Marathon, New York Marathon, if you can get in the lottery. You will see every shape and size of a person. The evidence is not there. You belong. I belong. So it's up to you to say, I'm not looking for evidence I don't belong. I'm looking for evidence that I can do. I can do this today. I can do something as simple as tying up my shoelaces or tying up my sneakers today and opening up the door and stepping outside. I can do something as simple as that. Even that is a win. If you walk around the block, that is a win. And then if you get up and do it the next day, that is a win. So there is no longer any evidence that we, plus size runners, larger women, above average sized athletes don't belong. There's no longer any evidence of that, because in today's 2026, you will see every shape and size of a runner on that road, and even in the trails, and doing ultras. So that is the message that I am conveying today. There is no longer any evidence that we do not belong in races or trails. There is plenty of evidence to show that we do belong. Well, that was today's pep talk. So that was today's pep talk. Episode 2. I hope you liked it. Short and sweet. It wasn't really short and sweet, but as somebody sitting here who's been running outside since March of 2018, I can tell you for certainty that you do belong in the running world, and your definition of the running world is the definition that you create for yourself. My definition of a running world is a runner that looks like however she wants to look like. It is not a runner that looks like Courtney Dauwalter or Shalane Flanagan or Desi, I can't remember her name. And even my local town hero, Melinda, oh my God, I'm losing my brain. Melindy Elmore, who I've met many times and is 5'6" and 110 pounds. That is not my idea of my own running world. My running world consists of women who look like me. So you have the ability to reframe what this definition is going to be for you. And I know I'm trying not to speak with aggressiveness but I'm trying to speak with conviction. I am convincing you that this is true. That when I created that streak definition for myself, I didn't use Runner's World magazine definition of a streak, which was 1 mile of running every day. I said, that doesn't work for me. I'm going to make something that works for me. I'm going to create my own rules. And if I create my own rules, there's less likelihood of me breaking them because I created them. Whereas if I use Runner's World magazine's rules, I don't want to run every day 1 mile. Believe me, I don't want to run a mile after having run 100 kilometers. So I'm going to walk. Just like you can create your own rules for your own streak, you can create your own rules of what your running world is going to feel like. And it can feel like slow, easy, lackadaisical, and carefree. My running world feels like that. It's enjoying the stride. It is not speeding. It is not doing speed work more than once a week. And that's only because the coach told me to do it. My running world includes me going sometimes up to the trails or the mountains and having food in my pack. That's my running world. And the reason I say that is because sometimes I'll see runners that pass me on the trails and I'm like, where's your hydration vest? Why don't you have a flask in there with like some electrolytes? And, they might only be running 8 kilometers, but 8 kilometers for me, you better believe I've got my hydration vest on, I've got a flask on, and I've got even an emergency food supply. That's my definition of running. So don't let anybody else's definition or view block what you want to make for yourself. And I think that's where a lot of people maybe will struggle because they're trying to borrow somebody else's definition and they just don't need to. You don't need to borrow Shalane Flanagan's definition. You don't. I don't need to borrow Courtney Dauwalter's definition of running, even though she's a Triple Crown winner and won 3 over 200 mile races in 1 year. But that's her full-time job. And she's 120 pounds. and super thin. So I'm okay with my own definition that includes food on every run. I'm okay with that because I still get what I want and I still make my brain happy by making it believe I belong in that world. So with that being said, I hope this resonated with you. I can't wait to read the comments on episode 2. We're just getting to know each other. And don't worry, I will definitely bring in some guest speakers next month. I'm trying to create a time for my coach to pop in and be one of my guest speakers and talk about coaching and ultra running and fueling. And for now, this is the most important part of a podcast is the getting to know each other and you getting to know me and, establishing, do you want to listen to this for another episode? Am I bringing value to you? Are you, when you walk away from this episode, feeling like, oh, okay, she gets me. I learned something. I'm going to try that. I'm just going to think about today. I'm just going to put my shoes on today. I'm just going to worry about today. I'm not going to worry about what I'm going to even look like because I still look the same almost after 8 years, except my legs are more muscular because that was never the goal. The goal was to be a completer, remember, and I'm definitely a completer. But I didn't know back then really that this was going to happen 8 years later. That's why you should never quit the journey because you never know where the journey takes you. And all the lessons are in the journey. I'll see you for episode 3. Thank you so much for watching and listening. I appreciate you. Thank you again to Mount to Coast for sponsoring episode 2 of Run Your Life podcast. I can't wait to wear my T1s at Hamelin 100, and I love the way they fit and the wide toe box for me personally. Give these a try and take 10% off your next order with Sandra 10.